Okay, this is a photo that I took up in Alaska. Needs a little bit of work. Kind of got a dark foreground, kind of got a bright sky. And we'll just kind of go through Lightroom and Photoshop here. This is really simple. I'm in Lightroom right now. Lightroom was created by photographers for photographers. So it's kind of like wading around in the baby pool, and just about anybody can do it. You don't really have to be too intimidated. First thing I want to do here, I don't really need to crop it so much, but if I hold the shift key down, it keeps my 2x3 format. Looks like maybe I got a little crooked here while I was hand holding this shot. And I'm just going to kind of level this up a little bit, make it look a little more better there. That looks a little better for me. Okay, so we got all these tools over here on the right hand side. And we'll go through these here one by one, but I just kind of want to show them to you. And they're kind of in the order that you need to use them. Okay, so we'll go here, white balance, and normally this is kind of pretty close. Your camera does a pretty good shot. I might warm that up just a little bit, kind of like that. Okay, and then this is exposure. Let me see here. I like to work on what needs fixed worst first. Okay, so my shadows were a little bit dark. Now look what that does to those shadows. Just kind of brings them out. Okay, I can go all the way up here, maybe 100%, not quite 100%. Okay, and then usually bringing down the highlights will give us more definition in our sky. Okay, it kind of helps that. Um, and if I look over here, I really can't go up more with my whites too much because of my histogram there, but I might bump just a little tiny bit because I'm not too worried about it if I bump a little bit. Okay, now go down here to clarity. Usually I'm somewhere about 50 to 60. And then this texture, we'll put a little texture out there. And these are all just kind of, you can kind of do it to taste, whatever you think. And dehaze, this is a really handy tool, especially if you shoot in a little fog or some smoke. I'm not going to try and sound like an engineer and tell you how it does it or anything, but it's a miracle working tool when you're out there and working in some rough lighting conditions. Sometimes really makes a big difference. Okay, now the saturation I'm not really going to mess with. The 24 is usually a little higher than I go there. Okay, saturation not going to mess with anything of that right here. May come back to it later. Okay, this is the tone curves. And when you get in here, if you look at this, you can affect reds, greens, and blues and stuff. This is just a basic Lightroom thing, kind of get you in and out really quick. What we're going to do, we're going to affect luminosity a little bit. Okay, we don't want to go up too much brighter there because it was really making the clouds pop a little bit. Maybe we want to bring a little bit up here. Maybe we want to come down with it. Maybe somewhere in there. Okay, now all these sliders here, we'll get back to them here in a minute. Okay, we have sharpening, and we can do a little bit of that here. What we can do, let's go up here, say 800%. Let's go down here kind of where we got a sharp spot in the image. Just kind of, I come up here usually around 75, 85, somewhere around there, and the radius about 1.0. And the amount is about the only one I ever mess with. And then I shot this in ISO 100, so I'm not going to really mess with any noise reduction. If you shot an ISO high, 800 or whatever, you got a lot of noise in there, you can use this luminance noise reduction thing right here, and it'll really help. But I use a different software for my noise reduction. It's called Topaz Labs, and a lot of things, Photoshop and Lightroom will get rid of noise, but they're softening the image as they do it. And what I'm doing here, this is just, let me go back to fit. You can't see what I'm doing. Okay, this is a vignette machine basically. So, you can go white. I don't like the periscope look, but Ansel Adams says we're not done with our photo until we darken the edges a little bit. So darken the edges a little bit. I'm not going to question Ansel Adams, that's for sure. Okay, now, a little trick I picked up here a while back. If I pull this slider all the way over this blue saturation, I don't mess with anything else here, but I pull that blue slider over. What I noticed is it helped about 95% of my photos. Now, sometimes if I'm shooting moose, especially little babies, what it'll do when I pull that slider over, sometimes it'll make my baby moose look a little bit too orange. So I can go up here in this saturation if my oranges get too saturated, see, and I can pull them back. I kind of like it right about in here, maybe just add a little bit of orange. Um, now I'm adding a little saturation here, not very much. Too much of a good thing, look. Too much of a good thing becomes too much of a good thing in a hurry. Then it looks phony, okay? Now, let's go in here luminance and try and we can raise some of these colors up. Go. A bit more color there. And let's see what happens with the blue. Look at our sky there, what we're doing with that. Kind of like that. And then we can go in here with a saturation in our blue saturation. And it even kind of makes that sky a little better. And then we'll do something else later. And we'll see what happens. Okay, now. Okay, we'll get up here and get into some of this. This is a really cool. This is an adjustment thing right here. We can affect the subject. We can select the sky. Let's just do that. Okay, I selected the sky. Now let's put an overlay over the sky. And it's also kind of affected the mountain just a little bit. So if I get in here, that turns off. We can, normally we can refine that somewhere here. Okay, so when I start to pull this over, now all we're doing, we're affecting the sky, okay? Kind of like it. Okay, let's see what happens with the highlights. We can pull highlights down a little bit more because we had some white spots there. Okay, now what do we do here with shadows? Let's go a little bit lighter. Okay, I'm really liking these. Now let's maybe add a little more clarity. I like it. Okay. So there we selected the sky. Now we can hit done. Okay. So we're done with the sky. So we can affect other things here. What else do we want to affect? Let's work on this rock here. Okay, how do I want to do this? Let's go, add a brush. Let's select a color range, okay? So let's select this rock. Okay, now it affected too much. Let's go over here and see what it did. Okay, now we can refine this. Here's our refine. And now it's pulling. Now it's more just the kind of the top of that rock and kind of those mountain peaks back there. And we can kind of lighten that up a little bit. We can darken it however we want to, whatever we want to do. And now that rock doesn't seem like much, but it's an anchoring point and it's a foreground element in front of your reflection and stuff. So that's kind of a cool thing to have in your photo. Let's go up here and see if we can learn anything else here with this. Let's go. Okay, brush tool. Okay, let's just use this brush tool here. Okay, now with my bracket keys, I can make this brush smaller or bigger. Okay, now whatever this plus is on, I've got it set to auto mask here, so it's going to kind of pick out what I'm painting here. See how it's not going to spill out too much into the other colors. It knows kind of the color that I'm picking. And this is a tool that they improve a little more every time. I mean, used to, this is just something that you wouldn't even try to do. But now, see how it's avoiding that rock? Well, it hit it just a little bit, and that's okay. It's not really hitting the water so much. It's just kind of selecting grass. Now I can hit my option, and look, my plus went to a minus, and I can go over here and I can erase that little bit on that rock. And maybe a little bit more right there on that edge. Yeah. Okay, if there's anything out here that it did, I can go out here and erase that. Okay. Now, I can brighten that grass just a little bit. Maybe bring some highlights down in it. Put some blacks in it. I've just kind of basically wanted to show you what we could do. Okay, let's grab that brush tool again. Let's do the same thing over here to this grass. Okay, maybe a little bit in this area right in here too. This little darkest area. Let's kind of bring all of this up in here. Okay, so it should be applying the same thing that we just did. Yeah. Okay, I kind of like it. Hit done. Okay, and that's kind of it. Okay, now we'll go up here. I don't know if you can see it, but I have photo. I click on the photo drop down. It says edit in. I want to go to Adobe Photoshop 2022. Now it'll take us straight out of Lightroom where we're wading around in the baby pool. Now we've jumped off in the deep end. Okay. Photoshop, if you remember, I said was made by photographers for photographers, so it's simple and easy for us to use. This was made by videographers and animators and stuff. And then photographers thought, man, there's some cool stuff in there for us too. And there is. It's just not as easy to use. At least not for an old construction worker, plumber like me. Okay. Now, sometimes you may be climbing this edge over here with your histogram. We try to fix that in the field with our camera, with exposure compensation or whatever. But if you're climbing here, you're going to have part of your photo overexposed. And if you go, like if I'm not climbing, so mine is okay. But see how these are really bright? If it was climbing the edge here, like this right here, now what I have, these clouds are blown out. So if I go to print this photo, a bunch of this right in here is not going to have any ink on it, okay? I need to pull this back. And now look what it's done to my histogram. So an easy way to fix that, if you're climbing a little bit, is I can go here and double click on this 255. Let me get it in there. Okay, now I can go back to 254. And now it just pulls me a little bit off of that edge. Okay, and I don't really think I need to make an adjustment in here. I think I'll just leave that and do the 254. Now I'm going to go in here to curves is the same thing. You see this little dot right here? I can grab this dot and pull it down. Look what it's doing to my histogram up there in the corner. See how it's bringing it away from that right edge? That's what we want. If we climb that right edge, we're going to be overexposed. So that pulls us away from that right edge. Okay, now we can go in here and do saturation. Too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing. I might pull this down just a little bit. -2. Now we can do lightness and stuff too if we're too light. Now look what we can do. We can go in here and we can just affect yellows if we want to. Or yellow's too dark, we can brighten them up. And yellow, I don't know why they call it yellow. To me, it seems green. affects a lot of the green. Let's brighten it up just a little tiny bit. Maybe saturate, maybe unsaturate just a little bit. Okay. Now, I like it. And you can go in here and do whatever. We've kind of took care of all of this stuff. If you do too much of it, it's just kind of overkill, and you go to showing off your photos and somebody's raising the right eyebrow saying, hey, you photoshopped this, you know. So now we've saturated these colors and stuff here. I want to show you something. When you saturate your colors in your camera by using exposure compensation, it really looks cool. Using a little negative exposure compensation, it makes your colors look a little wetter. Okay, when you do it in camera with exposure compensation, it looks really cool on your photo. Now you can saturate your colors here in Photoshop too, but when we saturate our colors in Photoshop, you know, it kind of looks like we saturated them in Photoshop. It looks kind of nuclear. So negative exposure compensation is the best way to saturate. You know, do that in your camera. Okay, now we've got all of these layers over here. This is our background layer. This is what we brought in to Photoshop and Lightroom from Lightroom. Okay, and then we did a brightness, a levels, a curves. These are all the adjustments we've done, and none of these adjustments are affecting our background. It's like a separate layer over the original photo. Okay, and that's important. So it's non-destructive. So Command Shift E or Control Shift E on a PC flattens them. Okay, so now I don't have all those layers here. Now, if there's anything we want to do, and I just want to, I'm going to hit Command plus a couple of times, and I just want to show you a couple of tools here that I like to use in Photoshop because they're easy. Now let's just say this rock right here. I can go over here with this patch tool and grab the patch tool and hit Command J because I want to put a layer over my background, okay, over my original. I don't ever want to be affecting the original. Let's say I want to get rid of this rock and this grass right here. Okay, I can do this, and look, I can pull this over here where it looks kind of like the rest of it, and say do that. Okay, you can't even really tell I did anything, okay? Now I can also use the spot healing brush here too, and we can go in and find little places like, let me just find something. Okay, see this little rock right here? See how it's gone? Might be a little piece up there. Hit it again, it's gone. You know, a little piece of grass right there, gone. Okay, it's just there's another little piece of grass right there, it's gone. Okay, so it's another cool tool here. There's a lot of cool tools over here on the left too, but I don't really want to get into too much of them right now. We are going to use this one here. We're going to sign our name. And the one thing I want to do here is I want to, okay, I had started doing that a little while ago. Going to have to delete that. Okay, now I want to create a new action. We're going to sign our name to every single photo we do. So what I want to do is, whoops, not AA, I want to go 22. Okay, so this is going to be for Todd Wetstein 22. I'm just naming my action. Now, when I hit this, my red light is lit up here. So if I go over here, now it's recording everything that I do, and I have my text selected already. So I'm going to go right here and just start spelling my name. T period space WHETSTINE. Okay, and then do your own name here. Don't do my name. Now, whoops, don't want to do that. Okay, now I want to go up here and click this checkbox. Okay, now if I hit my V key, it brings up a move tool. Okay, whoops, and I got to be on it so I can move this down. Now I want to get my photo down here in the corner. Let me go Command O. Okay, now bring this down here right in the corner and set it. Okay, now since I've done this on a layer, I can go over here to this opacity and I can, whoops, look what it does. I can affect how how bold it is there, I guess. Now, the other thing I can do, I can go back over here. I can click on this T. I can get back in here in this color. Now, look, I have this eyedropper. So if I click up here in the blue, it's going to make that blue. If I click on the white, it's going to make my signature white. And I kind of like to do this because now I'm using colors that are already in my photo. Okay? And yeah, I think it's a little better. You know, kind of helps match things. Go here with something kind of white, and I'll just leave it, say like that. Okay. Click OK. Now I want to click stop. Okay. Now look at this. Every time I want to sign my name, I can go in here and click this, and click this button right here, and it's going to sign my name for me. And I don't have to go through all these steps again. So we have just created an action. Very, very cool. Now I'm going to flatten those, Command-Shift-E, and I flatten that. Okay, I sign my name, and then I convert the profile. So go up here to the top drop down where it says Edit, and then come all the way down here where it says Convert to Profile. Now this will always be different. I'm working in a profile space called Pro Photo, and I want to save this for the web so I can send it to email, put it on Facebook and stuff like that, and make everybody like it. So sRGB. Now one of these days I hope to be sending photos to National Geographic. They're probably going to want that format to be CMYK. Or when I send it to my printer in California, Adobe RGB is what they want to run it through the printer and make it look right. Okay? But for now, I have it selected for sRGB. I'm going to click OK. And now we're done. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I go in here to Filter, go down here to Sharpen, and Smart Sharpen. This is how I like to do it. Some people will use Unsharp Mask. Now you can just go in here. I use around 170, 175, and you may not need that much, but you can just kind of tweak that top number. I leave the radius about 1 and the reduced noise about 10. Always just leave them. I just kind of mess with the amount a little bit. But usually it's around 160 to 175, something like that. And then just click, if you go up here, let's hit Command plus a couple of times. Okay, now if you hit this preview, you can see how much you've sharpened your image there. It's easier to tell once you blow it up a little bit. You can click OK. Now I hit Command O, and it takes it back to the same size. Okay, now that was the last thing. Sharpening is the last thing. Very important. Sharpening is very destructive. It destroys our pixels. So if we did that first, we'd be editing photos with destroyed pixels in them. Okay, we did all our color corrections and everything, color grading, removed our objects, fixed our sky, and did all that stuff, and then we destroyed our pixels at the very last to sharpen. Okay, now Command Shift S, and that'll bring us to the save. So this is a done photo, and what I like to do with my done photos, I like to send them in my pictures, okay, and then I'll put them in. I'll just go in pictures right now. Usually I'll put them in a TIFF folder, but I don't have that set up. But it's in TIFF format, okay? And I'm going to hit save. Okay, so now it's in my pictures. Now I can also do this, Command Shift S, and hit this. Okay, now I want to save a JPEG. But look here, it doesn't give me the JPEG option until I click Save a Copy. Now it will give me a JPEG option. So I can click that, and my JPEG, what I do is I send them to my desktop somehow. Okay, low res, that's on my desktop. Okay, now that goes into a folder called low res. Now that file right there is ready for email and stuff, and I'll be saving that on Facebook and stuff here in just a little while. But that is kind of a basic rundown of Photoshop and Lightroom. Um, and if I'm doing this myself, I go through it so much faster, because I kind of know what I'm doing. I did some things here that I didn't really have to do just to explain it, but there's really not a lot to that for the basics. I will get into doing some luminosity masking and digital blending where we're using multiple exposures and stuff like that. It does get a little bit more, but to start out with, this is all you need. Um, yeah, really nice photo. We've created an action. We fixed our sky. We went through Photoshop, Lightroom. We sharpened at the very end and we saved. So I hope you like these Todd Wetstein photography videos. Keep following and little want to, and keep your gratitude higher than your expectations. And we're going to be good photographers and we're going to have fun in the field.